Welcome to our Devos this week where we have been talking about your setbacks. Nobody wants to talk about setbacks, especially around the beginning of the year or the end of the year. Like you're like, oh, I've had so many setbacks. How many of us would honestly say between 2019 and 2021, we've all suffered setbacks? I have, whether it comes to your physical health or your job or lost loved ones. I mean, we've all experienced them. And when we get to a subject like this, we want to try to see ways that we can avoid them. Unfortunately, according to Scripture, you can't avoid setbacks. You can't avoid trouble. You can't avoid trials. But what you can do is allow God to take those setbacks and turn them into superpowers in your life. And that is the key to being able to overcome those setbacks. Setbacks, one of the things that they do is they remove your worldly crutches. I talked a couple weeks ago about our extreme, if not obsessive, desire for certainty. And what happens with a setback is a setback causes us to have all of the crutches in our lives completely and utterly removed to the point where we can only depend on God. One of, and I'm going to probably butcher this, but one of the most memorable chapters of any book that I've ever read, any Christian book that I've ever read, is a book written by Charles Swindoll on the life of David. And there was a chapter, and again, I don't know all the points of it, but this is where I kind of learned this. It was called David's Crutches. And in the chapter, Charles Swindoll breaks down how the Lord took all of the crutches that David had depended on in his life, and he forced David to depend completely on God. I mean, it starts with his family, him being estranged from his family, his brothers being against him. It starts with, it moves on to the promise of the royal lineage that was ripped away from him when he was made to be a fugitive and pursued by the king. His friendships when Jonathan is ripped away from him. His marriage when he's worshiping God and his wife despises what a fool he's making of himself. Even his esteem as a king when his son comes forward and decides that he's going to try to overtake the kingdom and try to kill David. I mean, David had every single earthly crutch ripped away from him. You would never want to walk that road. We love stories about David. We love stories about Moses, but I'm telling you, you wouldn't want to live their lives. You would not want to live their lives. We only tend to focus on the highlights of that. So I'm here to tell you that when a setback happens, what happens is it removes that crutch. Some of you have crutches right now. You're depending on something more than you're depending on God. You're depending on your charisma. You're depending on your health. You're depending on your ability to make money. You're depending on your ability to shuffle things around to get what you want. You're depending on the fact that you can go wherever you want, do whatever you want. You have a good financial plan, all those things. But a setback causes you to have less crutches and depend on God the way that you should have been. None of those things are bad. As I said yesterday, none of those things are bad. None of those material things are bad. But if we obsess about them, if we depend on them, that's idolatry, and it's going to lead you to a place of faithlessness. Let's take a look here in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 6. This is one of the most famously quoted passages of Scripture, and it rings specifically true. He says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. Don't lean like a crutch. Don't lean on your material wealth. Don't lean on your ability to do your job. Don't lean on the fact that you are doing well right now. Don't lean on any of that, but instead, in all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will make straight your paths. Being able to do well and thrive while we're living in Babylon is fine. But depending on our ability to live well in Babylon is not. God is the one that inevitably allows us to be able to do what He's called us to do. So when we think of setbacks, don't just think, oh, I lost so much. No. God's showing you more and more how you can depend on Him. And some of you fight this. You want to fight this. Like you take that crutch and you want to transfer that dependence on a deeper crutch. I'm just telling you, let's shortcut it right now. Just depend on Jesus. Just give yourself completely over to Jesus. Just put your life in Jesus' hands because He's the one that knows what best to do with it. He's the one that will make your paths straight.